Investigative reporter Renee Cooper is live outside that hearing room. So Renee, this was already canceled once. Is it going to happen today?
Well, McLeod, it was scheduled to happen in this room right here, this hearing room behind me. And as the Capitol starts to clear out for the evening, that has yet to happen. But I'm told hours later, it is still supposed to happen today.
Right, Renee, traveling has been treacherous for everyone, especially those heading home from work tonight. What are you seeing?
Well, McLeod, I actually have been looking down a little bit, turned around and looked up at the camera because it is blowing right in my face. I've got a good bit of deja vu going on here. Just 2 weeks ago, to the day, standing right here telling you what was going on Neal Street. There's a good bit of cars going by me right now. Now, Tyler is inheriting a police department that's been suffering from the worst staffing levels in its history. Coming up later in the newscast at 6:30, I'll share more about how he plans to make recruiting new officers, and diverse officers at that, his top priority. Live in Champaign, Renee Cooper, WCIA 3, your local news leader.
Renee, thank you so much.
Insurance company profits were the focus of their efforts, and it was leaving patients behind and leaving patients without care or leaving patients without access.
If it's really coming down to paying them, you know, insurance companies make a lot of money. There's a lot of people here in town that are being affected.
Dr. Kenneth Sagans is what you would call a Springfield Clinic staple.
You're not feeling too well, I hear. What's going on? I mean, I've been seeing people 20, 25 years, and to sort of not be able to see them anymore and have them leave is a little bit troublesome.
He estimates a couple thousand patients are under his care. How many are caught up in this dispute?
About, in my practice, 25%.
And when they need a specialist, Sagans says that's nearly impossible.
So having 6 to 8 month wait times now from the standpoint of any of your specialties is not uncommon. We've had that happen in the last week.
Now, how does that compare to prior to November?
Oh, yeah, it's no comparison.
Here's the bottom line. Patients are losing access to affordable health care.
Now, state law spells out specific requirements insurance companies have to follow. When we come back, why lawmakers are looking to tighten those rules and make sure companies follow them. It all started right here last year. Carle Foundation Hospital terminated its contract with Aetna Medicare effective January 1. Now, the impact is spilling over for Christie Clinic patients. Now, this is important because Christie Clinic's primary care providers here, they make up 2/3 of the available doctors all throughout Champaign-Urbana for patients who are listed in the directory Aetna mailed to Good upon request. I quickly realized, though, this entire directory is riddled with errors. We spent hours over several days culling through this list of doctors. It's the Aetna Medicare HMO plan. Only to find half of the options advertised to Champaign-Urbana patients weren't real. A few were actually specialists, like oncologists or cardiologists, not someone you'd see for a checkup. Others simply weren't taking new patients at all. And when we couldn't find them online, we drove to the doctor's offices. Places Aetna claimed are, anyway. This is supposedly the location of a Dr. Patel off University Avenue in Champaign. A receptionist at the dentist office next door says he's retired.
If something happens and I'm very ill, I'm not going to have the time or the energy or whatever it is that you need to make these phone calls and be told one thing and then be told another thing and that sort of thing. And I don't understand why Aetna is doing this to, you know, long-term customers.
Let's take a look at this again. I want to break it down a little bit better for you. Aetna says it covers the cost of 168 primary care doctors statewide. Now, 39 of those are available within the 10 miles of Good, and that's required by federal law. Now, half of those are actually real options, and that's including Christie Clinic doctors. And it's unclear how many were actually on this list before Carle dropped Aetna Medicare. Now, in March, Carle Public Relations only told us its Urbana Hospital would no longer be in network. Since then, we've learned it goes far beyond that. Now, the tower was originally built in 1918 as a First National Bank. It's now on the National Register of Historic Places, which further complicates demolishing it right away. The Collins insist there's a plan to refurbish it, but the mayor says he's had enough and he's ready to spend the millions needed to tear it down. Danville's 12-story Brzee Tower has been sitting quiet for more than 15 years. In the last decade, the terracotta exterior has caused safety issues, and it's been fenced in, blocking a lane on Main Street for a couple of years now. A condemned sign is tacked to the door.
This is my hometown. My family's been here since the 1840s.
Chris Collins and his wife live in Missouri now. The building was renamed the Collins Tower for the couple who bought it in 2018.
This building's going to be back to its former glory, and we are going to change the entire face of downtown Danville.
Despite the owner's verbal commitment, a Vermilion County judge declared the tower abandoned in February, giving the owners about a month to come up with a plan to fix or tear down the building. That didn't happen, and Thursday, the judge ordered the deed be transferred to the city.
We are definitely going to win on the appeal.
Collins represented himself in court, citing an inability to afford ongoing attorney fees, but assured reporters the lawyer who previously handled his case will be back for the appeal.
In the interim, as I said, we are making sure that we secure the building, and we are doing everything that we can to be prepared when we're fully authorized to demolish the building.
An appraisal shows the city will have to fork over about $8 to $11 million to finish the job. Collins says he still wants to transform the building into a 1920s-style hotel and theme park discussed years ago. If there's no money from the city and the county, are you confident that investors are going to cover the
Absolutely.
cost? Why spend money to knock it down versus keep it?
Renee, I want to be very, very clear. There are not investors. There is no money to secure this building.
Nonprofit Landmarks Illinois put the building on its list of most endangered historic places in the state. A representative tells me at least 2 investors have expressed interest in years past, one seriously, and another inquired with a nonprofit in the last week. But nothing formal has been put to paper. Is there any world at this point where conversations continue about redevelopment? Is that completely out the window for the city?
There is no possibility for this to be reimagined at this point.
It was exactly 2 months ago today that balloons were released into the sky here to remember 17-year-old Jonathan McPherson, who was shot and killed just feet from here. And now, in its place, lies a memorial. But it's easy to get lost in these numbers as they climb year after year. But to the families left behind, to the mothers who are experiencing the worst grief imaginable, these are not just statistics. They're sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, best friends. They're smiling faces and a voice they'll never hear again.
Renee Cooper live at Mattoon High School tonight. Renee, survivors telling us justice has finally been served.
Well, I spoke with Madeline Horace. She was a senior here on that day. She's still grappling with that day now. She told me a story of going out to dinner with her family, and even to this day, when she does that, she's checking for the exit signs. Now, on that day back in September 2017, she heard the shots from a nearby classroom. The rest happened really quickly. They first crammed into a supply closet in the science room, and then hundreds of students together ran out and down the sidewalk. She remembers the heat, heavy breathing, the blisters on her feet, and trying to reach her dad.
I remember I was trying to call him and he wasn't picking up, and I was thinking like, oh, you know, what if I don't get to graduate? What if I don't get to see my grandma again? Like, all these things that went through my head.
That updated sentence has brought with it some animosity. She feels like some people have been dismissive of the trauma that still lingers around this school. Now, of course, there's going to be some disagreements around anytime someone gets sentenced. So tonight at 10, I sit down with a prosecutor to understand why a now 19-year-old will spend the next 25 years behind bars. Live in Mattoon, I'm Renee Cooper, WCIA 3, your local news leader. Their search of the online marketplace found at least 80 sellers of unfinished guns last year. Now, what's less clear is how many people are buying these kits, assembling guns, and reselling them. And then, how often are those weapons used to commit crimes, like the shootings we're seeing here at home? I sat down with the Attorney General to find out.
I would say definitely within the last decade, it's become more prominent.
Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul says ghost guns are a relatively new phenomenon, but just how many are circulating our streets, officials aren't so sure. Champaign County is tackling its first case. 18-year-old Keon McLaurin faces several felony charges for selling guns he bought online and built. But barring an unlawful sale, ghost guns are largely unregulated, and there's nothing in federal law that specifies when a firearms parts kit becomes a gun.
But without that, you know, it becomes a wild, wild west.
So how often are these untraceable guns used in shootings and murders?
I don't have that accurate data, but I will say that, you know, using information we received from the city of Chicago, the prevalence is increasing year by year.
A Champaign County assistant state's attorney says they do believe some of the guns McLaurin manufactured ended up being used in shootings. Right now, there's no concrete proof. He adds, even if those guns were recovered by law enforcement, it would be hard to prove where they came from because, again, they're virtually untraceable. Still, Raul says the majority of firearms behind statewide violence are not ghost guns. Where so many of them are coming from isn't clear. Is there a loophole in our criminal justice system that's making it possible that law enforcement doesn't know the origin of guns?
I'm glad you asked that question because one of the projects that we've taken upon ourselves to embark on is creating of a statewide crime gun tracing platform. These are guns, right? These are guns, and they should be subject to the same restriction as all guns.
Now, in August, Raul and about 20 other attorneys general across the country urged ATF to finalize those regulations. That hasn't happened at this point. And as for the statewide crime guns database, Raul says we can expect that to launch in a couple of months. Back to you.
All right, Renee, thank you so much.